We talked a while back about the principles of behavioral psychology. Can you walk us through kind of the principles of it?
Right. I believe you refer to one of the posts that I
Yes.
recently shared about,
Hmm.
like 5 basic principles, right, of the behavioral
I think it was the
of event.
5 North Stars to guide your event success, right? And that
Exactly. Yeah.
that
So
rolled into
yeah,
principles.
I created that post just because I realized that people lack the information about some basic fundamental principles from behavioral science that we can use in event planning, in event design. And so let's talk about them one by one, right? First is humans are cognitive misers. And by that, I mean that we as humans, we hate any cognitive effort. So basically, whenever we face some information overload or something that we need to apply cognitive effort to, we just hate it. We always choose an easy way to go around something. And then the practical implication from that is that you need to make things simple for people. If you want them to act on something, you need to make it simple. And a great example that we all know about in advance is registration. So if you want people to register, don't throw like 5 pages long registration at them, right?
Oh
Because
yeah.
they're
You
not
lose
going
me.
to do that. Exactly, right? So
I have no attention span.
I always like share this example. I was trying to register for the industry event. It was online. It was back in the pandemic times. And the registration asked me about my county, like not country, county. Why on earth do you need to know my county when I'm trying
Yeah.
to register? I eventually I abandoned the registration, and I'm sure I wasn't alone. So if you need people to register, if you need those signups, you need to make it simple. I understand that you may need some information about those people, right? But you can ask that afterwards. And that's a simple
Yeah.
solution, right? So make it simple. It's number one
I love
mantra.
the I love the make it simple thing. It resonates with me, especially recently. I listened to a podcast with Brian Chesky on it. He's the CEO of Airbnb.
Mhm.
And he talked about how he obsesses over details and he obsesses over simplicity.
Yeah.
And the two, although they kind of mesh together, but he was talking about how they built Airbnb and the platform and the website. And he just wants the user experience to be so easy and so simple. And I mean, he went on about it for 20 minutes and I was blown away with like how focused he was on that. But he has the idea that people want simple. They want
Mhm.
easy. They don't want difficult. They have enough going on in their lives. So I think that's a
Well,
great first principle.
well, exactly. And, there was some time ago, I came across these stats that people make about 35,000 decisions a day. 35,000 decisions. That's a crazy number. And even if it's like a bit less, it's still, it's crazy. So you can't really expect people to sit quietly and register for 15 minutes for your event. They have some other things going on in their lives important enough that compete with your event, right? All the
Yeah.
time. So you just really, you cannot really afford this. You need to make it simple. Whatever the decision is that you expect from your attendees, you need to make it simple. That's the first one. The second one was, I think, about senses. So senses shape experiences. And obviously, all that is happening in the world around us. We perceive the world around us through our senses. And I think now, especially at industry events, I see more attention being paid to this topic. But still, it's not enough. We need to work more to engage senses, to understand how they work. And a lot of findings from neuroscience research can help with that. And so the first and easy thing to do to start with about senses is just to engage more senses when you design an event. And that means that we put a lot of focus onto vision, to wow attendees with, some colors, with some bright lights and stuff like that. But in fact, what science teaches us that the more senses are involved, the better, because there is this cross-sensory connection. And if we eat some meal, for example, it's not that only taste is engaged. We eat with
Yeah.
our eyes. That's one of the examples to show that cross-sensory connection is important. So if you involve senses other than vision, when you create some activation, some experiences within the event, that's gonna boost the level of engagement. That's gonna help your attendees learn more and more efficiently, and so on. So senses are really important. That's number
Makes
2.
me think of smell. Smell
Oh
to
yeah.
me is something that is so underused and underrated. I always remember, maybe it's me, maybe it's just a biased opinion, but I always remember certain smells at certain
Yeah.
places. When it's a distinct, it catches me, right? A hotel, a car dealership, whatever. I'm like, I always remember it for some reason.
Yes.
So I think it can shape an experience, like you're saying.
A lot of businesses from hospitality, from retail use that. And it's not you. I mean, sense of smell is considered by scientists as one of the strongest, most powerful senses that influences our memories. And so that's exactly what we need in events, right? So sounds as well. Music is so powerful. It affects our learning, it affects our mood, it affects our well-being. So all those kind of things can be improved just by using music, sounds. I'm sure you've heard about sound logos. Like Netflix uses sound logo. It's to them that sound, right? And you immediately
Gotcha.
understand that this is Netflix. It's not something else.
Yes.
So
Gotcha.
the
Yes.
same can be used in events for
Mm.
event branding.
Yeah.
And you can
That's
use
interesting.
you can even use a signature tune for your event. And that's a powerful way to remind your attendees about the event. That's part of your event branding. So it's not just the logos and colors, but also sounds. And that's
Yeah.
another way
That
to,
logo,
yeah.
that sound logo thing that you're talking about, it took me a minute to catch on to it, but it's interesting. A lot of like TV, movie companies have done a good job of
Mhm.
showing you a logo and then having some sound that comes with it, right?
Yes.
And you know the sound, you
Hmm.
know the entrance, you know it's not music, it's a
No, it's
sound.
not. No, it's
And
just
it
sound.
catches you. Very
Hmm.
interesting. The third I love. Let's go to number 3. Humans are irrational.
Yeah,
What a
that's one of
fact. What a
that's
absolute fact. We
that's
are
one of my
difficult and
favorites.
irrational.
Well, we all are irrational. Our decisions are driven by our subconscious thoughts and emotions in most cases. Did you know this fact? I just read it recently that people refuse to drink from bottles if they are labeled poisonous, even if they know that the label is false. That's just a fun fact, about how irrational we can be. Or another fact from retail, there was an experiment done about drinking from different wine bottles. So they were labeled, they have different prices, like $5 wine, $10, 35, 45, $90 wine. And then people were asked about their experience, how they liked those wines. And as you can imagine, the worst was the $5 wine, and the $90 wine was the best in their opinion. But what researchers did, they switched the labels. And so, in fact, there was only like 3 bottles of wine, and the one that was labeled $5 wine was actually $45 wine. So, long story short, when they did the blind test afterwards, they revealed that, in fact, the labels influence the satisfaction, the
Yeah.
taste, the enjoyment. That's crazy, right? So that just shows, and that's one of the many examples. And you touch
Good
upon
example.
a little bit on the fourth principle that I shared about diversity, because that's also about diversity, not only emotions, but diversity. So if
Yeah.
you enjoy your evenings, and I may be the one that actually prefer to step out and just
Yep.
be somewhere in the quiet space, right? So events need to create experiences for different types of people, right? And so that's the fourth principle that I share, that diversity
Diversity
drives
drives enrichment.
enrichment. Absolutely. And
Mhm.
that's
I
about,
love that.
so what we've done a good job about so far is understanding the demographic diversity, meaning, race, gender, age, things like that. But that's demographic diversity. And there are other types of diversity that should be taken care of. For example, emotional diversity. We usually create events and we expect it to be all about positive things. And that's fine. I mean, obviously, we as human beings, we want our lives to be, more positive than negative, right? But we need to understand that there is a range of emotions that people feel, not only about the event, but in connection to those topics that, to those themes that are at the core of the event, right? And so we need to acknowledge that and offer something that would recognize other types of emotions. For example, you can add a session about failures. I'm just thinking about industry events, right? Why not? You can add, if it's like a parenting conference, right? You can suggest some topics that are not about how to improve or how to be positive or how to find some solutions, but just about sharing what kind of difficult things they've been through. Whatever that might be, I'm just thinking out loud right now. But basically, you need to tackle different emotions and understand that people may appreciate that as well. It's not only about all the positive and rainbows and stuff. It can be about some negative emotions as well. So that's just about emotional diversity, but we've got neurodiversity as well. And that's what you've just mentioned about, different activities at the event that can be offered to different types of attendees who appreciate different things. Some might prefer parties and after hours networking sessions, and some may prefer, just sitting quiet in the corner and reflecting on their experience. So those things should be present for people to enjoy different things.
Agreed. What's the fifth? It's psychological value is greater than economical value.
Yeah, so that's an interesting one. And I think what you mentioned about, that episode with shoes that you just shared, that was partly about psychological value. And another great example would be, an iPhone. When it came out first, and actually throughout the years as well, somehow the owners of iPhone are perceived as those are more smart people, more like sophisticated. I don't know. I mean, it has this status which cannot be explained by the physical characteristics, because in some ways iPhone features might be less interesting or less efficient than with other phones, but the status that they achieved was through psychological value. So people who own specific products, let's say it's shoes from a specific brand or, an iPhone, whatever that is, they feel like they're special. They are better in some ways or smarter than other people. And that's the psychological value, because it is based on, again, some universal old human desires and psychological motivations. Right. And so you can achieve that with your event as well, if you, again, think about what's behind the reason to attend. Because if you know that behind that reason to attend is people who want to feel special, who want that, let me put it another way. So when people attend a specific event, they might feel like they're special because they may brag about that event. They may say like, oh, I've been there, and that means, that signals to their network that in some ways they are special, they are more professional, they are more interesting. So it gives them some status. So when you create an event that provides people with some extra value, you create psychological value. So it's not about how much money I spend on that event, but rather what it says about me if I attend this event.
Yeah, understood. I'll recap them for everybody real quick. First one is make it simple. The second is senses shape experiences. Third is that humans are irrational, right? So obviously the idea of emotion. The fourth is that diversity drives enrichment. And the fifth is that psychological value is greater than economic value.
Absolutely.